I wanted to meet as much people who are going to work for the system as possible and to understand how they think, to know my enemy by his face, to understand how to struggle with it, how to fight with it.
I'm Thomas, and this is The Mirror in My Cell. My normalish life was interrupted when some stowaway cannabis of mine reappeared at a Belarusian border checkpoint. The charge would be for 3 to 7 years. I was forced to witness myself and understand the power I do have. Now I want to meet the others who've been changed by incarceration.
This week I spoke with Vika, who is a human rights defender based in Lithuania and exiled from Belarus. This was the first interview I recorded with someone who hasn't been incarcerated, and so I was kind of surprised when I found myself being even more inspired and humbled than I've been so far. How can you be a good person to smile at darkness and find peace in a fight against evil? How to be kind with yourself within everything that you haven't yet achieved? Vika was the best, and her advice on us each finding our point of maximum tension, the point where we'll never be able to live the same life again, was amazing. The Mirror in My Cell is going to go on a short break for at least a month. I'm thinking Robin and I are working on a slightly refreshed format and hopefully charged up with a bit more tenacity for 21st century tech for sharing some of these conversations. So in that time, if you've got any feedback or guidance for us or any people that you think we should speak to, do get in touch. Please enjoy this conversation with Vika, and sorry about some weird audio as well. Take care. Hello, Vika. Very nice to see you. Thanks for joining me today. Lovely to be speaking with you.
Thank you for having me here in your podcast. It's nice to be here, and thank you for your interest in Belarusian topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're the first person that I've had a conversation with who hasn't actually been to prison. And for a long time, I wanted to keep it focused on people that had been to prison. But actually now it's like a year since I was in prison in Belarus. So in some ways, I feel a bit more like an outsider on the prison experience in some way. The emotions are further away. And I felt very emotionally engaged in the plight of prisoners and the plight of Belarus. But now I guess I probably feel a bit more similar to how most people feel when they hear about, someone's in prison, or there's some human rights abuses happening in a faraway country. But I actually think it's not. Yeah, I don't want. Originally, I was very sad to notice that in me, but now it feels okay, a part of a natural process. And even something that one of my previous guests said is that it just means that your PTSD is going away, basically, which didn't sound like a bad thing. But for that reason, I think it's actually a really nice moment to speak to you, because you're also an outsider, but also a person that is putting a lot of effort into thinking about and improving the situation for people that are in prison and the situation of a country that sends people to prison. So so I'm actually really happy to speak to you.
Absolutely. Actually, I can relate. I also sometimes feel like outsider because I'm not in Belarus anymore. And sometimes even in Belarus, we have this narrative, like, just look at the people who are inside Belarus, look at the people who are in prisons. You are not in prison, so you cannot be a victim anymore, or something like that. And I think that even outside Belarus, we're still struggling with that feeling of victimness, but also with that blameness that, okay, we are not in prison, we are outside, and we should do something more than even without this, something like that.
Yeah. And I think it was also, I guess it's also a really nice moment to speak to you, because I want people outside to not feel, because I think when you feel that emotion that we just described, I'm outside it and it's not bad for me and I shouldn't be complaining and like, it's not my fight, I don't want to speak on behalf of people that are suffering, all of this stuff. I don't think that's a very helpful sensation, and I think people need to accept that is the reality and then think about what they can do next in some ways. It doesn't help anyone to blame yourself for not suffering as much as someone else or not doing as much as someone else. So yeah, because of your work and because of like how you've processed that emotion, I think it's really nice to speak to you today.
Even among Belarusians, sometimes we think that, like, we came to the idea that we shouldn't blame like ourselves, or we shouldn't blame Belarusians outside or inside, but we should blame regime, like Lukashenko's regime. And actually it is a thing, but we tend to forget it. And that's why I want to highlight it again, like in conversation with
Mm,
Belarusians. Just remember, we should blame not ours, not Belarusians, but regime who is doing this, actually.
yeah, absolutely. Would you mind just giving like a brief introduction into who you are and the situation in Belarus that helped you become who you are today?
Yeah. Today, I define myself as human rights defender, or sometimes I define myself as a human rights lawyer. And in 2020, I was a student, law student, and also a situation happened, and that's why I joined Human Rights Center Viasna as a volunteer, because in 2020, everyone were doing something, like either you participating in protest or you preparing for protest or something else, and I chose something else. I was helping people who took part in protests, and afterward, and after this process, they were persecuted by administrative legislation, administrative procedures. We didn't have this criminal persecution so much in 2020, but we had plenty of administrative protocols, detentions, and arrests. As a lawyer, I was trying to help people to postpone these decisions by filing complaints on them. So it was just
Mm,
bureaucracy. It didn't help people to really defend their rights, but it helped some formal procedures to postpone the implementation of these decisions and so on. Also, in 2020, I helped people to file applications for initiation of criminal proceedings against policemen who used violence against people, because a lot of people faced violence, and it was, I think, for the first time for a long time in Belarus, when people just saw how it works. They saw who policemen are in real life. Like we didn't face so much violence before. That's why people were shocked. They were disagreed, and they came in crowds at our office. We had a lot of people at our office who just wanted to initiate criminal proceedings against them, because it shouldn't work like that. And today the situation is different,
mm.
and we cannot even imagine the same interest of initiation of criminal proceedings, because everyone knows that if you will file a complaint, you will be arrested or tortured or something else.
And were you working for Viasna whilst you were in Belarus? And how did going through that process and seeing, realizing that your country was like that, how did that change your outlook on life?
Yeah, I think that it got harder for me because it is immigration, and it is forced immigration, and it is immigration to like closest country, not somewhere else. For example, Portugal or Georgia. Yeah, and I don't know. I feel a little bit isolated now from the whole society in Lithuania, because I'm like immigrant here. So yeah, I wish to be in Belarus now, because in Belarus I know like everything. I know everyone. I have this education, so I'm a lawyer and I can work as a lawyer in Belarus, but I cannot work as a lawyer here in Lithuania. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it is really interesting because before 2020, when I was younger, I had dreams to go somewhere else and to observe and discover the world. And now I'm doing this. So at the same time, I understand that I have a lot of possibilities, oh, opportunities.
Oh no. Accidents happen. I'm really interested in your work around the law. Why did you start studying law in the first place? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually, it was connected to like justice and all that stuff, and politics also. Yeah, but somewhere in the middle of my studying, before Vesna, I wanted to be someone like IT lawyer, but it was like 6 months maximum of my history when I was thinking something else, not politics or human rights. And Vesna was just my dream, actually. I just wanted to work in Vesna before 2020, and I came to the office of Vesna and I asked, can you work here, please? And they said me, no, actually, no, sorry, we don't have any vacant like places for lawyers. We have enough lawyers, no. But then, yeah, just 1 year later, and they asked me to work for them. I would say that this situation worked for me to some extent.
Did you always understand the law? Because the law is something that in Belarus gets written by government, by like by a dictator, essentially. How can you how do you relate to a law that was written by someone that you disagree with or doesn't care about you?
That's actually a good question. Also, in Belarus, we have some universities, like not one, more than one university, which teach law, where you can study law. And I chose the most pro-government one, which is called Academy of Public Administration under the President. So it was 2017.
Okay.
And I chose that one just for these purposes, to know my enemy by his face, because I wanted to meet as much people who are going to work for the system as possible, and to understand how they think, how are they taught. And yeah, I wanted to feel it on my own experience, to understand how to struggle with it, how to fight with it. Yeah. But actually, then it turns out that there is no huge difference between academy under the president and just law faculty, ordinary one, because everyone are taught people who should work for the system. Yeah.
And so did you spend a lot of time with people who then became part of the government system?
Yeah, actually, some of them became part of the system, and they became like persecutors, or like persecutors for political criminal cases. And yeah, I can see pictures of them on media and so on. Yeah, and it is just scary for me, because I was thinking that this person was okay, was normal, was moral, but then it turns out that he's not. I didn't understand
Sorry.
what's the difference between people who are like with moral values or who are without values. Because when you speak with them, and if the person is smart, you think, okay, if you are smart, you should be like moral, you shouldn't be somewhere in the system, you shouldn't torture people and so on. But then these smartest people, they go to this persecution office, and then they persecute the people just for opinion.
Do you have any theories about what makes two people different, one person with morals and one without?
I think that only knowledge matters. I wouldn't think that the person, my like ex peer from university, that he's less smart than me because he is less smart, or because he's less moral than me. That he's less moral than me, it's for sure, yeah, because he works for prosecution office, and there is no doubt. But he's not less smart than me. So I think that my surrounding decides, because I first, before academy, I came to Psy Lyceum. I was entered to Psy Lyceum, and Psy Lyceum is the most opposition lyceum ever in Belarus. And I met a lot of people who shared these national ideas and just some better future for Belarus. And before Lyceum, I would say, the same person as that guy who now is Persecutor, because I just didn't know how it works. I didn't know what problems we have in Belarus. And then I met just amazing people who showed me how it should be, how it was, what we have as Belarusians. So it's just only about knowledge. Yeah. And knowledge and surrounding people, I would say that he just was, I think, in bad company. That guy who became persecutor, he's from bad company, and I didn't become persecutor because my friends from my company will not understand me, or people who I know.
It feels somehow like some type of very special power to empathize with people like that, and also quite necessary somehow. Like, I don't think there's actually that many people that are in a position. Maybe in law it's more common, but people that really want to fight for the environment or to protect animals or something, I don't think those are very often people that know the face of the people that push things in the other direction. And it's a really interesting position to be able to understand how the other side works. And it is, I found it super tough because I remember having a lot of empathy when I was in Belarus, having a lot of empathy for the people who worked in the prison or some of the police and so on. And it was very clear that they sometimes had options to be a worse person or an option to be a better person. They could be more strict or more harsh or more cruel or less cruel. And very often people chose an option that was to be nicer, to be better people. And it's very confusing to see people who have made so many decisions in their life that contribute towards a system of such oppression, but you also recognize their humanity and see that they still have a capacity for like acts of love and friendship and kindness. So I found it very hard to process. I think it made the world a lot harder to understand for me, having seen that. Maybe, like you say, if the only thing that was different between you and that guy is the environment, then why could you blame him for having been in that environment or having a different group of people or parents than you did?
Yeah, environment matters. Just imagine all your friends, all your family, they just think in one direction and you think in other direction. You will say that you disagree with them, or you will tell them like alternative story. But I don't think that they will listen to you, especially when the majority of them, all of them, they are just different. So you just cannot be like a part of this group. I don't know. Is that how it works? Now in Belarus, we have a lot of prohibitions on independent information, on this alternative information, and it is just additionally labeled by government. And it is labeled, and it is also risky to follow independent media, independent channels, like to sharing. If you will send someone like alternative post, just from independent media, and this independent media is not necessarily political one, just independent, not government one. And if you share the post from this media, it means that you can be arrested for 15 days, and policemen will check your phone. They will check your personal correspondence, your personal private messages. Even if you send something to your like wife or husband or daughter or son, they will check and they will punish you for this. Even. So now it's even worse. So they know where to push. The system knows where to push and what to make even more pressing.
And do you feel like you and Viasna have a clear idea of how to push back? Do you see a route towards a better Belarus?
Yeah, I believe that we do really important work because we are speaking about political prisoners. Only Viasna is, I would say, is just main source of all kind of information with violations of human rights. And there is only like an invitation for a person. If you want, just come and see. If you don't want, we cannot force you. And so if a person has any like thought, he knows or she knows that he or she have to go to Viasna website to check what's going on right now. And I think it works pretty well because even now in Belarus, our website is blocked. We recognized as extremist formation. It means that any kind of connection with us, yeah, it is criminal responsibility. But if you will follow security advices, recommendations, if you're not gonna follow us or sharing our post, but just reading and knowing what's going on, it is enough and it is safe. So yeah, I think that our like answer is really appropriate because that's why government is persecuting us, because they need to make us and society silent. But we are not silent. That's our answer. We got the information from society in Belarus. So people are sharing this information of violations with us.
Do you feel hopeful on a daily basis as a person who goes to the shops and meets your friends? Is that the same person that's like fighting against like a government dictatorship as well? How does it affect your like just how you personally live your life?
Yeah, actually, in general, I feel 100% hopeful. I do understand that my work will work out, not even if tomorrow, but it can give some results in 10 years or in 20 years. And I do believe that I'm a part of history, that my work is like for history also. And I know that it is just fixed, like everything. So in general, I'm hopeful, but sometimes there are dark days, and I think that it's not gonna change. Nothing's gonna change like this year or next year or 10 years or even maybe 20 years. But 20 years for me, it's half of my life. So it is important. Yeah. So sometimes I lose this hope for short time period, and I'm trying to think something else. Maybe I should do something else, something more, or something bigger.
And when you look at Belarus and feel bad and you see like the control that the government has, what is it? Something specific? Is it the lack of freedom? Is it the fact that there are actually people in prison? Is it the fact that you might end up in prison? What is the thing that has the biggest emotional impact on you about how the situation is?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind is economical situation, because Lukashenko, he is a dictator. He doesn't differentiate political power and economical power. And he is not expert neither in political nor in economics. So he's doing like trash in economy as well, and that's why I'm really scared of economy of our country in general. Because when the power will be changed, we need to do a lot of work to recover economy system. But it could be better if he just didn't manage it on his own, but just to delegate this work to someone who is more expert, Ministry of Economy, for example, or something like that. Not by his, not on his own. Yeah, but also I think that we all kind of problems everywhere in every area of life, and we cannot change this area because of Lukashenko. He just prohibits any alternative actions. That's why it cannot be developed, nor in education. In education, same, it's just controlled. Every area of life is controlled. So I don't know. Just we need to change Lukashenko and to establish different powers, like independent judicial, court power. It's gonna be okay with it. And then economy, legislative power, like everything, not by one person. So I think that the more problem in our situation is not even Lukashenko, but but the fact that he is just one person. If there are five Lukashenkos, it's gonna be better, I think, because each of them gonna be like expert in something. Maybe it's gonna be like dictatorship, even more. But at the same time, I do believe that he also is trying to rule the country how he can, how he see it. Yeah.
And how much does the plight of political prisoners impact you? Like, how much is that something you're able to emotionally connect to?
Oh, actually, yeah, it ended somewhere in 2020. This number existed in 2020, but after 2020, I just connected with only with those with whom I work. So I work with relatives of political prisoners. I'm trying to help them to file complaints or to do something legally. Yeah, always people who I just knew before, just personally, because I don't have one friend in prison. I have a lot of friends in prison now. And that's ordinary situation for Belarusians. You don't have one or two people. You have like at least 10 who you know for sure, like in person, because the scale of repressions is high.
And how does it emotionally impact you, or how do you go about your day, especially in a country where that's, for most people that are going to work or going to restaurants, that's not something they can relate to at all in the country that you live in. How do you like walk around and have 10 of your have 10 of your friends in prison and suffering immensely?
I think that now I don't feel the same feelings as I felt in 2020 about my friends in prisons, because I so got used to these feelings, to this situation. So it's not like trauma or something more right now. It's just reality. I think it
Mm.
works the same in the war, when you just observe how people are dying in front of you or like around you, and you just stay used to it. And you need to survive, you need to fight,
Mm.
and so on. So I just want to say that we Belarusians have something like transformations of that experience, and this experience is not gonna kill us so much anymore. It's just maybe it will kill us after, when the situation is over
Mm.
and we will understand what happened to us. But now, I don't know. Now it's something like we cannot relax now and cry and be victims. We need to do something, because otherwise everything is lost. Yeah. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to do some basic emotional care and self care, and we have a lot of psychological support, even from Belarus. I mean, from our psychologists, and from outside Belarus, from expert experts in this field. So I feel supported and I feel pretty well. So I
Mm.
can care about
Mm-hmm.
myself and can go further, move on.
What kind of things do the psychologists tell you or do with you?
I don't know, just basic stuff like how to be grounded, how to breathe in stressful moments. For example, also when I emigrated, it was 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. I started to write journal to do journaling, and for
Mm.
until this day I do it, and I just cannot stop. It became like my addiction, because that's a tool which supports me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really nice.
Mm.
Also, you remember my beliefs that
Mm.
I'm trying to get into history, so maybe my diary is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
relevant. Yeah, of course.
I think
Yeah,
so. It's quite likely.
yeah, yeah.
10, 20 years. Let's check in. Yeah, it's also, when I was in Belarus, I also started writing a diary for the first time, and I've also kept going ever since this day, like still a year later, and it's never something I did before. But yeah, it's an immensely like grounding thing. I think just to hear yourself. Well, for me in prison in Belarus, it was like the most. Yeah, it was the most important thing to. And I said, if there's one thing that I keep doing when I've left, it's like continuing to write a diary, because I think just like putting some distance between yourself and your thoughts is like such an important thing, and saying I want to like these my thoughts are me, so obviously I move forward with that, but also I need to be in control of them as well, and a bit of distance. And I think that's what for me, that's what the diary gave. I'm interested. It relates to what we spoke about at the very beginning. I guess I'm wondering with this question is how can more people become participants, or how could more people is because it sounds like you have a really healthy attitude towards fighting for a better future, while also like looking after yourself and appreciating your own abilities and not putting blame on yourself for changing things faster or more effectively. Is there advice you could give to people about how to, especially moral people that are maybe fortunate enough to have had the environments and the friendship groups and the families to create good moral conditions, but maybe ones whose lives don't, maybe they don't work in the legal field or something? How could those people become participants in creating a better world and like exercising their morality?
Yeah, I think maybe discipline and promises to yourself can work. But promises, they are not gonna be like desire to be a moral person or something like that, but promises from the very bottom of your heart, like which is also like for people around you, for your society, for your country. You just promise it, okay, now my country will have me in new quality. I promise my country, I promise my family, I promise my society better version of myself. Like which and these
Mm.
people can rely on me because otherwise they cannot rely on you. You're not moral in this or that way.
Mm.
And I think
Mm.
that what happened to Belarusians in 2020, everyone decided, okay, now I'm this person for those people and not that person anymore. We have really popular, I would say, like phrase of 2020. People saying that, okay, we are not the same anymore, like after 2020, or we we are not gonna tolerate that anymore. This power, this
Mm.
government, and yeah, I also think that it is important to get climax now. This point when after this point is not it's impossible to continue like before this point. There is a point of tension.
Mm.
You gain this point of tension, so like advice, maybe you can make yourself to get to that point of tension. Maybe you need to amplify this something what you have and what you disagree with inside you. You need to make
Mm.
it bigger
Mhm.
so that size you're not gonna tolerate it anymore, and you just take a decision.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I think that's yeah, that's yeah, it's really powerful, and I love yeah. I think lots of people we're very aware of how much is happening in the world. Like I think we're more disconnected from like our immediate surroundings and the society we can impact than all of the bigger things happening in the world. It's I think we've given up a lot of power just by virtue of what we look at. It's like things come from social media, from big news publications, and we don't really investigate as much time in being aware of how our individual actions can change the world. And I think that's such a nice you put it so nicely about how you can relate to the bigger struggle of good and evil and what do you accept and what do you not accept in the world, but ultimately the consequences of that are all going to be ways that you behave in a daily basis. So I really I got a little bit of goosebumps when you said that. I think that's that's a nice way of putting it. How do you feel when you meet people who are hopeless or are don't think they have any power or don't think there's a way for them to live in a better world?
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, most times when I meet these people, I just say them, "Oh, I can relate." Yeah, I can relate, but it doesn't mean that we are hopeless for forever. We're just hopeless right now. It's okay. I think it's acceptable, and there's nothing to fight with because if you're gonna fight with your hopelessness, it's gonna be bigger. So we just accept it,
Yeah.
and it's very nice when people around you can relate, can understand, and say, "You, I've been there. I know what you feel."
Hmm. Yeah, I remember writing down as well. Or I had, it's actually, I got it. It's right here. This is one of the, I'm not sure if you recognize the books. This was one of the books that I got in Belarus. Maybe some of your friends get buying similar ones from the shops in Belarus. But I remember writing down at one point if it feels, so you often talk about like when you have depression, you're like staring into the void. I'm not sure if they're quite specific English words or whatever, but just like staring into like really intense darkness with you have no idea how far it extends or where it is. It's like a cliff that you just can't see the bottom of and staring into the void. There's literally just like nothing to, yeah, nothing to engage in apart from darkness. There is void. There is just like immense darkness and nothingness and like senselessness in not just the world but like the universe in lots of ways. But and that's okay. That's okay. Like just to say like that does exist as a certain type of truth, but there's also so many other things in the world which are truth. And if you can know things like love or friendship or beauty, like that's all true as well. It can coexist, and you shouldn't tell yourself that there's not a void or you're wrong for seeing it. But you should also be able to turn around and look at the things which do make life special and be able to embrace them and live every day with those things driving you and motivating you.
Exactly. Yeah, agree 100%. Yeah.
And I guess I was, because this, like, lots of these conversations, like, I've interviewed a couple of people that have been in prison in Belarus now, but also lots of people that have been in prison in other places. And I think that kind of, I didn't think I would have been able to, like, say that or hear myself say that if I hadn't been in that situation of, like, such darkness and such intensity. And so lots of the conversations that I've had have been about the extra insight and the extra truth and the extra strength that it's possible to access or to be aware of when you have, like, it's similar to what you described, like that maximum point of tension in your life, or that climax of awareness or like pain in some ways. But I sometimes feel I'm confused about how to bring that conversation together with the story of a place like Belarus, where it's so dark and painful for so many people. I'm confused about how to be aware of that conversation at the same time the conversation is the one about, like, the extra meaning or the extra beliefs and appreciation of beauty that can come from being in that place of darkness. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I saying that after like really harsh experience, you value something neutral, something like when it's absent.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes me feel weird to have these conversations somehow, where lots of the people I'm trying to get them to say my life got a lot better, and I feel like I understand much more of how I want to live and what's important to me, and that's all in some ways thanks to this very dark time that I experienced. And for some people, their life has been about, I don't know, maybe their life was about crime or about drugs or something, and then prison was the moment of maximum tension where everything could be refocused. But for lots of people, that if you go to prison because there's a dictatorship and a man who doesn't want to let you speak your opinion or live a free life, it feels somehow offensive or patronizing or inappropriate to try and have a conversation about beauty and about love and about hope and about freedom when someone's experienced so much pain from oppression, basically.
Actually,
I don't know
yes.
if
You
you
know what?
relate to that.
Actually, yes, I noticed that how people are really ex-political prisoners. They are different from mm, not prisoners, not ex-political prisoners. And for example, when we have like parties or like events when where a lot of people, I can recognize who are political prisoners, like ex-political prisoners, because these people are just in the moment. They are dancing. They are not, don't care about what others think about them. Usually, it's ex-political prisoners, and it's just incredible how huge this difference sometimes. Just last week, I went to the party, like Belarusian party. It was like rave, but it was not just like rave. It was like Edna rave, and we had both parts of both generations, older generation and younger generation, and we like met there in one place. And yeah, they were just they like these ex-political prisoners, and older and younger only ex-political prisoners. They were dancing, they were in the moment, and for me it was inspiring and just obvious. Yeah, is it exactly what you're saying? They just feel life now differently.
And do you think it made them better people, or do you, like, I struggle to know whether to, because I don't want to say prison is a good thing or that it's good for good people, like all those political prisoners are, to go to prison. But then it's confusing to sit in the sit at the same time as saying, like, all those people probably have so much more appreciation for beauty and love for their country, their friends, their family. It's confusing to have those two ideas in your head at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Actually, yeah, I
um,
think it works like that, unfortunately. I'm not gonna recommend anyone to go to the prison and after that you are gonna value your life. But it is just this
mm,
memento mori. Yeah, you just faced
mm,
something really dark. And after that you can understand where
mm.
is light.
And I have to say, I really love how you talk about reaching this point of maximum attention, because it does feel like, because when I got out of prison, because I had been sending letters to all of my friends and family outside, and lots of it was channeling some of these ideas that we were talking about beauty and about acceptance and about appreciation and about living a good life and so on. Lots of people were very like, yeah, people spoke to me or responded to those messages as if they would never experience anything similar, or that I was going through something very unique, and it's very extreme, and it's especially because there's so many ideas around prison, and Belarus was such a like faraway place for so many of the people that I knew and so on. But actually, I think you've put words to a lot of what I felt, which is that like everyone will reach a maximum point of tension in some way. Maybe there'll be a crisis, maybe someone they love will die, maybe they'll be stuck in a really extreme situation or be at a limit in some way. And I think exploring who you are and having space in that moment to understand who you can be and who you want to be, I would encourage everyone to think about what that moment could look like for them, and reflect on, what they're able to sacrifice in their life right now to get in that position in some way,
Sounds very good.
maybe.
I love it. It's like a summary. Yeah, yeah.
Cool, Vika. It's been so nice speaking to you. It's been really beautiful. I think in some ways it could be even more inspiring for people, because you're the same as so many other people who are asking themselves like, how can I be a good person, and also feel feelings about these big topics, even if it hasn't happened to me. And you speak in such a reflected and hopeful, optimistic way.
Actually, it was inspiring for me also. A lot, a lot. Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation, for your project again, for your vision, because I think I infected a little bit by your vision also, like a vision from a
Hmm.
person who is not Belarusian, but so deep in Belarusian situation, in this experience of fighting and of struggling. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was incredible conversation.